everybody, and welcome to the Tapestry of Connection. I'm Gena Frances, and today I am thrilled and honored to welcome Emilie Raffa to the program. Emilie is a best-selling author. She's a dear friend. She is a healer, and we have so much to talk about. First, I want to let you know where you can find Emilie, and then I'll tell you again at the end. theclevercarrot.com is where you can find her writings. She also has a best-selling book called Artisan Sourdough Made Simple. That's amazing. You should check it out. And then her first book was The Clever Cookbook. So we're going to delve into sort of how intuition has played a part in Emilie's life and see where we go from there. So welcome, Emilie.
Thank you so much, Gena. I'm super excited to be here.
So you and I have a similar background in that we both had professional careers, writing, in your case, my case, in journalism, also writing. And then we've kind of leaned into this other world that, has been an adjustment, I'll say, for me, of letting people know what I'm doing now in the healing space. So can you talk about sort of your journey and how you went through life and got to this place?
I was always very intuitive as a kid. So I would say it started there in a sense. I had a very, very strong inner compass. I had these ideas out of nowhere, usually creative ideas, and I would just sort of act on them. But I didn't really think anything of it because I'm a kid and I don't have context, and I certainly don't have the life experience or the frame of reference to know where it's going. It's just something you sort of experience. So I've always carried that with me since I was young. But fast forwarding, sort of to where I am today, I have always leaned on that, especially in creative pursuits. I've always loved writing. And as I got older, I got into photography. I've always loved cooking. And it's sort of this through line that you don't realize is happening when you're so involved in creating, because all of your senses are sort of engaged, and you're locked in and you get into your flow and you do things and you don't even realize until you have to, explain them to somebody. Why did you do that? Where did you get that idea from? And you're like, I don't even know. I just kind of did it.
Yeah,
exactly. So I really started to pay attention to it more when I became a baker, because in baking's very scientific. You follow the recipe, you follow the formula, but things can go wrong. And I learned that to really remedy those things, you have to go off script and trust yourself in ways that are not written down. And that's where sort of the magic happens in finding out these things and sharing them with people. So I call it baker's intuition. So it's just another sort of category or derivative of what I had always been doing.
Did you realize when you were a kid, when you talk about having it as a kid, did you realize that you sort of knew things, or did you hear, did you feel? What was the way your intuition kind of spoke to you?
So my intuition always spoke as a gut feeling. So I didn't necessarily hear, and I didn't necessarily see images in my mind's eye. It was always a gut feeling. It was always a sense. So I would say I was also extremely clairsentient when I was younger. I was a type that really felt deeply. It wasn't just my emotions that I felt deeply. It was the emotions of others, the emotions of people, different people, places, situations. And so based on feeling and gut knowing, I would sort of act from there. It wasn't until way later the different senses started to appear. So now I have intuition through hearing and seeing, and that developed mostly through meditation.
I'm familiar when you're talking about creating and that creative process. I can remember telling people when I would be in an edit or I'd be writing, it's almost like you're one with divine presence. It's just flowing through you and you're feeling that feeling come through you. So walk me through sort of what led you to move more into healing and Reiki, and because it's a jump, right, from what we're used to, and it's a process.
Oh, it's definitely a process. So my, the turning point for me, which it was a big deal. So it coincided with sort of a deep initiation, and I'll be very specific. I had an awakening in 2017, and leading up to that awakening, I was going through, it was the worst time in my life. I had really, really strong anxiety, panic attacks, insomnia. My hair was falling out. I mean, everything in my world was compounded in the worst way. So I was literally going through hell. And this went on for a few years. So there was this lead up to a point of this awakening moment. And that was the moment that broke everything open. So the intuition that I had when I was younger, or the clairsentience, everything amplified times 100. So the inner knowing got stronger. The feelings got way, way stronger. The vision came online. My dreams started to get really intense. I started to dream in black and white. I started to know things before they happened. And I'm not talking like big events. I'm talking, it could just be random things like I'm thinking of a deer and then a deer would cut me off as I'm driving, or things like that. Very commonplace. I would pick up objects and I would feel like shooting tingles in my arms. And then I would place them down and it would go away. And I knew I was just different. I knew something had happened to me, and I'm leaving out a lot of details, but it basically, the older version of me basically died in a sense. And moving forward from there, I just knew that I had a choice. I could either go back to who I was, the person who was suffering from severe anxiety, couldn't barely breathe from the panic attacks, go bald at that point from losing my hair, or embrace and sort of surrender to this new chapter, even though I had no idea what was going on.
So when that was happening, were you just like, what? And, were you?
Oh yeah, it was.
And like,
I was, the thing was, I was more startled than afraid, meaning like, oh, wait a second, what's happening? Because it was, then I got the signs and synchronicities and all these things started happening really fast. And I wasn't a stranger to signs and synchronicities before. So I knew something happened that was sort of bigger than me. So I did a lot of Googling, and a lot of searching and reading all the articles and reading all the books. And I started to understand that I had a spiritual awakening. That's what it was. And there was this big point of demarcation when that happened. And that was it. And so I was starting to find stories that were relatable, and it made me feel more calm and grounded. And I had more clarity in what was going on. But when I started to do meditations and I would start to see deceased loved ones pop up and other things, I was like, okay, now I'm entering something where I really need to get some human support. So that I started to look for teachers and actual real people that I could talk to and connect with so that I could just tell them everything and, get a mentor, just sort of get that support that I needed.
And, you're a mom and, you have family. Was that hard I'm sure they saw you going through everything you were going through. Did they notice the shift with you also?
They did, in a sense. I don't know if they knew how deep it was because I am as Capricorn as it gets. I don't wear my feelings on my sleeves so much. I do now a little bit more. But I have really cool parents and I have a really supportive family. So luckily, when I started to talk about what was happening, it was met really where I was at the moment. No judgment, full support. I could talk about the same thing over and over and over again until I felt like I could move on. So I felt really held there. And my mom was actually the first person I called. The next day I was like, Mom, something happened to me. Something definitely happened to me. And she was the right person at that moment.
That's amazing. There's a common thread that seems to be there's either some kind of trauma, some event, some difficulty that for those of us who maybe were kind of lulled into sleep that kind of forces us to sort of wake up and embrace this type of life. Walk us through sort of you then, did you start to do healing first, or was it just, it was more integrated into your writing and your teaching? Because you also teach, correct, with your cooking?
Yes, with cooking. So let's see. So at that time, when all of this was happening, I was knee deep in writing Artisan Sourdough. So I was falling apart while having to make these deadlines, and it was a very, very difficult time in my life. So what ended up happening was I started to work with a mentor. Her name is Anna Gannon, and she gave me framework to drop into. So I studied with her one-on-one with energy work and intuitive development. And that was support that I really, really needed. And from there, I was going through this big healing process, just working with a mentor one-on-one. You have no idea the amount of stuff that comes up and out. And it was incredible. I was not expecting any of that. And so when I was working with her, I'll never forget one session. I was sitting down and just taking notes, and I wrote the word Reiki down on my notebook, and I circled it 3 times. And I had no idea why I did that, because we weren't talking about Reiki. It was not a topic for discussion. It was just something that, came down and out onto paper. And so I said, oh, I feel like I should probably look into this somehow. And then in the weeks to follow, and I've heard of Reiki back then, but I didn't really know much about it. But in the weeks to follow, my son, who was younger at the time, little, I think he was like 3 or 4, he would bring me little injured butterflies or ladybugs. And he said, Mom, what do I do with this? And I'm like, oh, we heal them. And I would just intuitively place my hands over the injured insect and just show him, or even myself in that situation, how to hold it and how to support it. And I'll never forget one time I did that, and the butterfly, kind of did like a little wiggle afterwards and flew away. And I was kind of remembering, in a sense, that sort of hands-on healing. And so it kind of made sense that I had scribbled down the Reiki and that I was just randomly doing it. And I said, okay, I think I need to go take a class or figure out what this is all about. And I did that. I had no idea what I was getting into with Reiki level 1. I just showed up. I had no idea there was an attunement, nothing. I mean, I did sort of reading the description. Like, I didn't know, you know what I mean? But I trusted, and I went, and it was one of the greatest things that I ever did, because it is not just meant to heal others like butterflies and people. It's also meant to heal yourself. And it's one of the greatest tools that you can have. It's free, it's forever, and you can access it at any time. So,
yeah, it's so interesting, because similarly, I was going through something and went to someone for Reiki and started having Reiki sessions where I was getting healed. And I remember her saying, oh, you're a healer too. And I would slough it off because I wasn't ready. It's really hard to put into words what Reiki can do, both for the person being healed and the healer. Yeah. But it's interesting that you mentioned trusting. And I think that's something that I keep coming back to, is like trusting the message and trusting the path that you're on, and trusting that, it's happening for a reason. So what's it been like since you kind of trusted that and started to go with it?
So for me, I've realized that so much of this work, it's 2 things. One is you can only connect the dots when you look back. So speaking to what you're saying about trust is, if it feels like a yes, go for it and just keep going. And you're only going to be able to weave your story back together once you've hit that certain point. Maybe not the finish line, but that point of realization, you're like, oh, okay, so that's why I do that. So the other thing is belief. And I think that deeply goes with trust. When you have that really deep sense of belief in yourself, anything is really possible. So with Reiki specifically, the way it makes me feel when I do self-Reiki, I'm like, wow, this is incredible, because I feel lighter, I feel more clear, and especially with everything that's going on in the world today, I feel so much more grounded. And it's something that I can do to just keep me centered. And then continuing on, it's become a passion. So I went to Reiki level 2 and did that. And I was like, I really want to hopefully teach this one day and give people the tools and teach them that they 100% can heal themselves. Because when you call yourself a healer, right, it sounds like, oh, this person is going to heal someone else or heal, but it's really, I think the greatest healers are the ones that just hold space for the healing to happen, for that person to do it on their own. And that's, the premise of Reiki, essentially. It's being able to support that, the body's ability.
I think that's very key, that because the ego, also floats around us. And the thing is, I have to remember when I'm working and healing, I'm not really doing anything other than preparing my body and mind and soul to be open and to be a channel for that energy. And you're right. Whenever I do a session on someone else, I always, when they say thank you and everything else, I have to say, when I give healing, I'm also getting healing. So it's, it's a mutually beneficial thing. As much as I am honored and grateful to be here for you, it's also helping me along my spiritual development. Do you
Yeah.
feel the same?
Oh, absolutely. And even if you don't recognize it in the moment, which is kind of hard not to just because it feels so good, it takes you in so many different directions, even just in how you carry yourself when you're not doing a healing. You know, you ever have a conversation with somebody and they are just so healing just to talk to, or just their
Mhm.
presence is comforting and healing? It's just, it becomes an embodied trait. And I think that I gravitate towards that because it just makes me feel really good for myself and for others, and just to be of service in a sense.
And so, continuing on that journey, how has it been when you've let other people know? Have you sort of let others know that this is the work you're doing, or is it more just on a case by case basis?
Yeah, this is a great question. So it's been on a case by case basis, right? Because the first thing that someone will say to you is, "Oh, you do Reiki? Where do you work? What's your website?" And I'm gonna be really honest with you, I'm not set up. I don't have a website to do Reiki sessions yet. I'm just doing, practicing on friends and family and easing into this sort of next chapter in my life. So it's been case by case because I don't, most people think that you have to have a professional service attached to it. And I'm kind of like, well, in the beginning, I'm just doing it for myself and practicing. I'm not sure where I'm going with it yet. So yeah, so it's been sort of like a slow announcement, I would say.
Mhm.
But now I'm at the point where it doesn't bother me. If people want to know, I talk about it openly. And I love connecting Reiki with some of the scientific research that's out that you read about it. I love the fact that it's offered in some hospitals and
Yeah.
wellness centers and clinical settings. I love that because, aspects of it or the effects of it can be measured, right?
Mhm. Go
And
ahead.
I did even more research about it, and it turns out that patients had been asking for it. They've been asking for complementary therapeutic care, not a replacement, but complementary. It's kind of like, you go into a grocery store and there's going to be organic food, right? You have conventional food and organic food, and it's your choice what you can have. So to see that show up in the wellness space and medical space and the hospice space as well,
Mhm.
I like the fact that it's doing that.
20 years ago, I did a program and it involved like sort of exploring Reiki healing for CNN. And at the time, it was just like there were a few clinical trials happening with breast cancer survivors with hands on healing. And Reiki was still kind of way
Yeah.
out there. And
Yeah.
it's so nice to see like it coming online in a very tangible way,
Mhm.
so that doctors and nurses who are science based, they want to have results, that there's actually a way to say, here, look, it actually does have a benefit. Now, I will say when I'm working on someone, I never claim to be, there's an ethical responsibility doing
Yeah.
it. I'm never claiming to, diagnose or be a doctor or any of those things. I will tell people like, oh, I feel like maybe you have digestive issues, but you'd want to go to your doctor. I'll work on their energy field.
Yeah.
I might make note of it, but it's like for those that are skeptical, we never try to replace doctors that are very important in people's care. Like you said, it's an adjunct,
Yes.
you know.
Absolutely not a replacement. Yeah. So I think that's just, it's when you start to connect it and you link it back to, some of that research, and then just, in everyday talk, it goes, it works on your nervous system as well. And I think we could all use a little bit of nervous system work these days. So I love that. So it's easy to talk when you speak through that perspective to people who might be skeptics.
Mhm.
Funny because Reiki, I mean, it's rooted in spiritual tradition, but again,
Mhm.
it depends on the lens you're explaining it. The medical community will never say that Reiki is spiritual necessarily. So I'm open to however it unfolds.
With your psychic development, if someone's new to this is also a great thing for people who are new to this type of work, because you can see, like, we all come at different times, we all arrive at different places, we all have different experiences, but there's a shared experience as well of sort of this awakening. What would you tell someone who might be listening to you and think, oh, that kind of sounds like me? What would
Mm.
you want them to know?
In terms of Reiki and
Reiki and healing and, just the spiritual awakening aspect of it.
I would tell somebody to really, really tune in or go within and really listen to themselves. They have to really, really hear their own voice, because when you start to share these experiences, when you are in a raw and vulnerable state, it is really, really listening to your own voice before the external judgment or opinions start coming in, or the questions, because you may not even know how to navigate anything external at that point. So really, whether it's journaling or just going for a walk, really just get in touch with yourself and what is going on with yourself first. And you would be so surprised at how informative that is. You might out of nowhere suddenly realize, hey, you know what? I do want to take a healing class. Or, hey, you know what? There was something online about intuitive development. I want to look into that. Or, hey, there was that book on signs that I really want to read. You have no idea when that information is going to come hit you, and then that shift is going to happen should you take action on it.
That's important, because so many people, because of the world we live in, where we're so fragmented, we have so many things coming at us, that a lot of us have lost touch with that connection to self. So this kind of work is very much about going within and reconnecting and knowing yourself and knowing what things you have to work on. Like it's a constant class, right? I mean, you're constantly evolving spiritually as you do the work. Now you can see energy when you do Reiki, right?
Yes, I can see energy. So I can see it with my eye.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm just looking at someone, it's very, very, very subtle.
Mm-hmm.
Very subtle for me, the way I see it. It just depends on the person, or it depends on, the situation. But I can also see when I close my eyes and I lay my hands down. It's almost like my hands, they're like little visual stethoscope kind of thing, where I just place it there and I just get sort of an X-ray vision, what's going on inside. And then I'll just watch where the Reiki goes, wherever it lands, or, specific area it wants to hang out. And then I just flow with that when doing a session. Yeah.
And I think that's interesting, because like mine, if I close my eyes, and there are things that I can see, but mine primarily is I will get sensations in my own body. Like I feel if I'm around someone, and obviously if I'm doing a Reiki session, you've asked for permission and you're, scanning their body, but I will often feel their ailments in my body. I don't see and I'll feel the energy if it's dense or if it's lighter, and I can feel where it's imbalanced, but I don't. So the way it speaks to me is slightly different than the way it speaks to you. And I think that's the mystery of like how it works. I have no idea how it works.
I know. Something just came up while you're saying that. I sometimes, and this is probably similar to what you're saying, you can feel the pain of the person. Like one time I was doing it, I was just getting the sharp shooting pain in the back of my neck, and I knew it wasn't my pain. That's the other difference. When you do energy work, you know what your energy is, specifically what your energy is, versus someone else's, because you're in constant contact with other people's energy all day long, whether you do Reiki or not. Like if you and I were just having a normal conversation, not talking about Reiki, we're exchanging energy. It's just the way it is. So when you're really clear on that, when you're having physical pain and somebody else is having physical pain, and then you're just feeling it. So that will happen sometimes. I'll get their pains, or
I'll just say I've learned to say, like, as soon as I recognize it and recognize it's theirs, I'll ask spirit to take it away. Like, okay, thank you. I don't need to punish myself and sit in it, but but it makes me aware so that I can then help the person.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
But one of my teachers are like, well, Gena, you can ask that it be moved away. I was like, oh, right.
Well, there's so many things going on in the moment too. You don't even realize that. You're just kind of like, wait, what? Because you need a minute for it to register. But I think it's important to ask for it to go away too, because even when the session closes, you don't want to leave the session carrying that with you either, whether you realize it or not, that it's still there or pinging, that kind of thing.
Have you had the experience, like sometimes I'm out somewhere, like, and occasionally I've been where I put my hand on somebody and my hands like light up and get really hot, and I'll be like, wow. And, it's a tricky thing, because you have to ask the soul's permission before you can assist healing, which I'll do in that moment, and then place my hand. But it's always wild to me when I'm not even working.
Well,
So
that's the thing. I feel like it's kind of when you close down a session, I feel like sometimes it still drips, because it's still in you. It's an embodiment. And yes, it's through intention that you're not working in a specific setting, but sometimes you just can't help what you can't help. It just happens. That happened to me actually. There was a dead bird on my porch, and I had to move it. But when I went to move it, and I think I put it under a tree or something, I felt a rush of energy, and it felt like cold chills, not the kind that makes your hair stand on your arm. Like these cold, energetic chills shoot out of both of my hands, my arms, and both of my hands as I placed the bird down. I was like, okay, I knew what it was, but to your point, it's that similar. It just comes out sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't, or it's you don't feel it that significantly all the time.
And do you find, like, when you're doing Reiki, like for me, it's had a way, it's like, see if I get this the right way to say it, like it's communication with spirit to where it deepens my faith, because each time I trust that message that comes through. And, when you're working on someone, you don't say it right away, right? I mean, you're doing the work, and then afterwards you have the debrief. And it's like, I can't count how many times when I've trusted that message to come out, how it's been affirmed. And it's like, and then thereby that makes the connection even stronger. Do you find that happens with you?
Yes, because I think the more fluent you are with trust in general, it becomes autopilot. And that doesn't mean you'll get everything right, because sometimes you'll trust a decision and you may not love the outcome, but it was still the outcome that needed to happen. And I feel like we need to experience both ends of that spectrum. But acting on that trust and delivering that message and just doing it makes you more well-versed. It's just easier to speak the language the more you just do it and just take the risk, no matter, if you're right or wrong.
And you also shared, like, you've had deceased loved ones come along. Do you, you've delved into mediumship some? Do you enjoy that experience?
So mediumship was the thing it was not on my radar at all. I fought it at first. There's a difference between thinking about somebody and then getting a visual, and then not thinking about somebody and suddenly they show up. I connect with a huge, person in my life on the other side. He's great. He sends me signs. I mean, I work with him specifically, and it's fantastic. And, it's open conversation.
It just goes to show there's so much we don't know about what happens after we cross over. There's so much we don't know, but what I feel like it does do for me is let me know that this isn't it. There's something more, number one, and that our loved ones never really leave us. That they're always with us. It's just we may not have the radio station tuned to the dial, but it doesn't mean that song isn't playing.
Oh, absolutely. Right? Oh, I love that. Yeah, that's totally true. It is true. And I think that when you're in that situation and you experience something like that, the evidence is undeniable. You may not be able to prove it. You may not be able to have the evidence of the other side or whatever it is, but those signs and those synchronicities, that is the evidence. And it just becomes so undeniable that it doesn't even matter at that point, at least for me. It makes my life so much richer and so much more exciting and comforting, knowing that that's what there could be on the other side, and that's what exists on the other side. And you can connect with the other side, and anybody can connect with the other side. Absolutely. I just think that, like you said, sometimes the station is a little bit louder for some people, and for others, they just have to know that they can turn up the volume.
Yeah, and I have a mentor that I work with regularly, and I had a session today where he asked me to bring in 2 loved ones to talk.
Yeah.
And so I did, and it was interesting because it was like his grandparents, and they came in together, and they, from the jump that they came in, they were kind of bickering in a funny way, and I immediately felt all of that and was sharing that with him. But 2 things happened that were very interesting that made, like, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that's who it was, right? Yeah. Because the grandfather showed me some overalls, but I knew he didn't wear overalls. Like, I saw the overalls. And I remember saying to him, I said, okay, he's showing me overalls, but I know he doesn't wear those overalls. I said, but what that says to me is that he worked with the land and he farmed. I said, but you in no way wore the overalls. And then I heard the spirit, I mean, heard, quote unquote,
Yeah, yeah.
I would never wear overalls. I'm a refined gentleman. I said that to oh my God, he says that, you know? So like,
Yeah.
that's interesting there. And then the other one, the grandma said something like, oh, he always looked after the little wounded bird. And it was like a statement. And both of those statements identified both of those two people for my sitter, right? And if I hadn't trusted that to say it, you know, because for those that don't do this work or just starting to do that work, it can be kind of scary because, especially if you're like me, you don't want to get things wrong. You don't want to
Nobody does.
right?
Yeah. No,
And so,
nobody does.
So when you first start going out on that limb and saying it, I've learned not to, I don't feel that way anymore. But in the beginning, you know, it's very scary when you first share some of this stuff that you're getting, because what if you're making a fool out of yourself? What if? So what are some of your best experiences that you've had either through healing or through mediumship, any of the things that you've connected to, or is there one that stands out from you?
Let's see. So with mediumship, so with who I work with very specifically, I call him my gatekeeper. Anytime I do a reading, I just dial into him. He's always ready and waiting for me. He was a restaurant owner and he loved to work the door. So he's kind of like the guy that works upstairs, and he's always there, and he picks out who's going to step forward. So that's our agreement. But he's also really funny too. And so what I want to talk about is so he shows up as butterflies, monarch butterflies. And over the summer I was driving and he was on my mind for some reason. I didn't know why. I saw a butterfly fly across my car on the expressway. I was like, oh, hey, what's up? You know, that's our language. And then I said, oh, if that's you, I'm like, give me a bigger sign today. I was like, I want to see something that's, you know, go for it. And so I'm in the car with my son and he's like, Mom, there's a farm stand over there. Can we go blueberry picking? And I'm like, yeah, sure. So I pull over the car, we get out, park, we're walking. And he goes, Mom, what is that? And I look over and there is a butterfly statue that's like, I swear on my life, it was like 400 feet tall, gigantic monarch butterfly. I'm like,
Oh,
you
wow.
got to be kidding me. I mean, I made my son go take a picture next to it and he's like this big compared to it.
Wow.
I just looked up and I said, okay, cool. Thanks. You know, that was really,
isn't that amazing? Like that's just,
it was so great. And it was so instant. I didn't even have to wait a day, you know, to get a fun sign or a connection. So it's stuff like that I love. That's really exciting.
And you mentioned something. It's always important to say thank you and to be grateful.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
The more you express the thanks and the gratefulness, the more you invite that connection. And at least that's how I've experienced it.
Yep. Because you keep the conversation open and you keep the conversation. I love the fact that it's not formal for me. You know, I feel like sometimes there's a lot of like formality and fanfare associated with how we connect. And sometimes you can, you know, connect with them how you would connect, like how we're talking right now. Cool, connected, you know. And in the case of the butterfly, it was funny. Like I laughed. I said, oh my goodness, that's a good one. And just to have fun with it because makes you feel joyful.
Yeah, before I even had gotten into mediumship and everything, I had an experience where my father had passed away and I had wanted the connection. And he used to always call me first thing on my birthday, right? And like, we're talking like 6 a.m., 5:30 a.m. It's like, he wanted to be the first to wish me a happy birthday. It used to annoy me if like when I was in college, you know, and I'd had a late night or whatever, but without fail, he would do that. And so for the longest time after he passed, my birthday, I would be sad because that call wouldn't come, you know? And I remember this one particular birthday was really sad. And I was like, Dad, you know, please, you know, send me some sign that you're here with me on my birthday. And I am not joking. This is the days of iPods, so we didn't have iPhones yet. I had gone for a run and I had my playlist, you know, on the iPod.
At the dial.
Yeah. And this song was not on the current playlist that I was playing. I want to say that because, you know, you had different playlists. And I went to go take a shower and I heard this song playing It's Louis Armstrong, What a Wonderful World.
Oh, yeah.
Filling my kitchen. I'm like, where is that coming from? And I go into the kitchen and I don't know how, but it's coming out of my headphones, but it filled the kitchen. And that was the song that he and I had danced to when I got married. And so he was coming to say hi. And it's like, you can't make that up. I mean, I don't know how they do it from over there, but they do say, hey, we're here. Hey, you asked for it, And I just remember being so overcome with emotion and happiness and that bittersweet kind of feeling. And so that's where I go to when I start to feel like, oh, what are people going to think when, they know that I'm doing this? My mind goes there. Yeah. It's going to help people. And so the people that judge and whatever, go ahead,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
But that's exactly it. And when you asked me to come on here, it was an immediate yes in my body. I was like, yes, because chances are, whatever your beliefs are, chances are somebody has experienced a sign or a synchronicity of some sorts, whether it's something similar to your story or even just seeing feathers or when thinking of a loved one. And I feel like the more it's talked about on, just an everyday conversation, it gives people permission to step up and talk about their stories and share their stories. And
Absolutely.
We've seen it online in forums and books and stuff like that. And I think it happens way more than we think. And it just opens up the conversation to a life that is, way bigger than we can possibly conceptualize.
And I think that's important because that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do the podcast. I mean, I don't know who, I'm going to trust it's going to go to the people it needs to go to. But one of the goals I had is like taking away some of the sort of stigma is not the right word, but just sort of like this othering of this, right? I mean, this othering of this, because if you really drill down in most people's experience, they have experienced intuition because everyone has it. The more of us that talk about it and that are open with it, I think the more healing can be done for our world, you know?
Yep. 100%. I agree with that.
You go into a space and you bring positive energy, how sometimes it can shift energy in the room. Same thing with negative energy.
Yeah.
And there's so much sort of, at least I feel, I don't know how you feel, so much in the world right now.
Yeah.
Of this heavy, not happy energy.
Not happy at all. No, it's everything that we're experiencing right now is extremely heavy. And most of us don't have the tools. We don't have the tools. We're glued to our phones, glued to a screen, and it's constant nervous system assault every single time you're looking at something. Even if you have a beautiful, happy algorithm, there's those videos that slip in there that just shift and jar your day. And going back to Reiki, really, it's that tool that you can use to heal aspects of yourself. And then you bring that out into the world. And that could be in a conversation. It could be in a healing practice. Who knows? But it's out there. And I do feel that we could use some of that, a lot more of that.
If someone wanted to train, how do they find a good teacher? How do they find a good person that, whether it be Reiki, psychic development, like what was your process in finding your teachers?
That's actually a really good question. And so a lot of that was put on myself to self-navigate. And I did that through researching online and reading books, et cetera, et cetera. Looking back, that was like the biggest trust exercise because I was building my foundation and I had no idea, not a clue in the world. It wasn't until I started listening to personal growth podcasts, spiritual development podcasts, that I started to hear about people in the field and some of the services that they offered. So my very first teacher, I found her from telling her story on a podcast. I was driving my car. I didn't know who this person was, but whatever it was, it resonated with me that I pulled over my car and I booked a session on my phone. Didn't even look how much it was and just said, I need to work with this person. So for me, it was resonance. And I didn't even see a picture of her. So it was resonance through sound for me specifically. So what I would say to somebody else along this path is you really have to dial in and think about what you relate to in that moment. And go in the spaces where you think you might find someone. So for me, I set the intention. I literally said, I need to work with somebody. And then it came through in that podcast. So set the intention that you want to look for somebody that would resonate with you and where you're at currently. And then just stay open to what signs come up for you in your process. But take action on it, like and look and go online and see.
You say what resonates, because just like we're all different people, we have all different personalities. Someone that resonates with me might not resonate with you, or vice versa. And so I think there are all different approaches that people use in this work, and the right person is out there for.
Oh, absolutely. And I think also you'll have many teachers.
Yes, absolutely.
The many phases and the many chapters that you go through. So while I was working with one mentor, I started, towards the end of our one-on-one sessions, I started seeing specific images that were tarot related at the time. And I was like, what is this? And I was like, do I need to learn tarot? And I was like, I don't even know tarot, but these images look familiar to me. And what's happening? I think it was 12 hours later, Linda, our teacher, she popped up into my Instagram stories. And I'm like, who are you? Oh, I'm going to work with you. So I had no idea who she was. So I signed up for a class, and if I didn't sign up for that class, I wouldn't have met you. And I wouldn't be here, So it's that you're going to have many teachers. You got to go with what resonates. You got to trust, even if you don't know where it's going, and see what happens next.
That was the thing. I remember when she said she was hosting a retreat, something said, you need to go.
Yeah.
You need to go. And I was like, what's going to happen when I go? Like, I don't know what's going to happen when I go. And I'm so glad that I listened, because now I know so many psychics and mediums, and, there's just a whole family of people that are supportive of one another in our growth.
Yeah.
And I love that. And I'm just super grateful that allows me to talk to you and to know, hey, everybody, this lady is a best-selling author who writes, about baking and sourdough. But guess what? She heals through her work. That's one thing to talk about, healing through baking. Let's talk about that, because I
love that. Beautiful. So healing through baking, dialing back to when I first started baking sourdough. So we're over 10 years ago. I was in a very sad place in my life. Very, very sad. I had just had my second child. I have 3 kids, but this was after my second child specifically. I just thought I was tired, low energy, and miserable because, as a mom with 2 small kids, you can't do it all, but you can do it all. So I was just tired and just working through it. And at the time, I was following a blogger online who baked sourdough bread, and her energy was so infectious that I was like, I think I need to bake sourdough. She is just so calming and down to earth, and she's just doing it. And it just sucked me in. And so I actually reached out to her personally. She shared some of her sourdough starter with me, and that's how I started baking sourdough bread. And what that did for me at that time, it jump-started my healing process, but I had no idea. I couldn't tell you that I was doing the healing work. I had no idea, because I was locked into the flow of baking, right? I had all of my senses engaged, my sense of smell, my sight, touch, all into this dough, working with my hands and creating something very, very rewarding, both to eat and to serve the family, but just as a personal process. So when we were talking earlier about, you can absorb somebody's negative energy, the same hold true is when you absorb somebody's positive energy. And this person, her name is Celia, she was just putting that out there to the world. And so that's what started the healing. And I started writing about sourdough, and at the time, nobody was interested in it at all. I would put out articles. It was like crickets. Nobody cared. That was
Taylor Swift baking sourdough.
Right. So fast forward to when I started to write that book, I was going through Dark Night of the Soul, the whole bit, falling apart. My publisher's like, yeah, you want to write another book? I'm like, sure. Meanwhile, I was dying on the inside. But that, again, it was like my body said yes while my mind wanted to say no. And I ended up saying yes. And so that book was also part of my healing process, but me not knowing it. And I put that energy into that book, also not knowing it. So then you have the pandemic in 2020, and the entire world starts to bake sourdough. I could not have predicted that at all. That's when it came online, literally. And that book and the process of sourdough specifically has helped to heal so many people on so many different levels. And I know this because of the emails, the messages, and the videos that I get sent on a daily basis about how something in that book or something in the process of baking or in their personal process made such a huge impact on their lives in ways that they were not prepared for. So it's now commonplace to call bread therapy or kneading dough meditation. And there is a reason for that. And that is that healing, whether people realize it on a conscious level or a subconscious level. The dough is the medium.
Hearing your story, and it's like, and I know how spirit works.
Yeah.
But hearing that, like, how does anybody have a doubt that there's spirit working in people's lives? Because you could not have anticipated a global pandemic. You could not anticipate that people in a global pandemic are going to start baking bread and then thereby find, your books. I mean, like, I get chills, like, just thinking about it, because, you were placed in exactly the right place at exactly the right time. And, just the act of what you were doing opened the door for other people to heal. And that's incredible. I mean,
yeah. Thank you. And I didn't know. I really didn't know, because I was really going through my own process, and it was painful. It was so painful because, an awakening, to those who are unfamiliar or to those who haven't experienced one, it's not stars and unicorns and rainbows. You are purging stuff that you didn't even know you were holding on to.
Yeah.
It is, you know what I'm saying? If I'm like casually describing it to somebody, I'll be like, it feels like a near-death experience, even though I didn't get into a car accident and die for 15 minutes and then come back. But that's what it feels like. It feels like I go back and access that older version of me, but you still got to deal with the healing process afterwards, right? You get a car accident, maybe you need a surgery, maybe you need physical therapy, you got to rebuild. And my rebuild process was very, very, very long, very long. And it still is, but you get to a point where you live your life now, and it's not just, the healing just becomes secondary in a sense. But yeah, so going back to what we talked about, trust and just going for it, regardless of how it was going to turn out. And it turned out to be
quite amazing. And to that end, because you did all of that and you wound up in the class that I wound up in, I get to know you and I get to be a teeny tiny part of your circle. And just, I'm so grateful and so honored. I mean, because it's what I really hope through this podcast is people see we are everyday people having spiritual experiences.
Absolutely. That's what it is.
We come in all shapes and colors and sizes and ways in which we talk and ways in which we do things. But the space that we operate in is so beautiful and so wonderful. And I just feel blessed that I get to walk a little bit alongside of you.
Same. No, I do too. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful connection. And you said it perfectly. It's everyday people doing supernatural things, or of that. And as you were talking, it's just something that came through quickly, is that healing comes through many forms, not just taking a class on healing or going to a healer. It could be any act of creativity, connecting in nature, whatever that means to you.
Your body. I mean, there's all kinds of.
And absolutely, so many different levels. It's just what we choose to do. But when we do, I mean, the impacts are so, so beautiful.
You are absolutely amazing. Everybody, this is Emilie Raffa. She is a beautiful soul, inside and out, talented writer, baker, healer. And again, you can find her at theclevercarrot.com, and her books, check them out. The Clever Cookbook, and Artisan Sourdough Made Simple. And thank you so much, Emilie, for being with me.
Thank you, Gena. Thank you so much. This was such a wonderful experience.
Thanks so much for being with us. And if you can, drop a like, follow, or share this podcast. If you need to get in touch with me, you can do so at spirituallightwisdom.com. Remember, we're all connected, and these are just some of the stories that weave us together. For the Tapestry of Connection, I'm Gena Frances. Until next time.